changing your diet while keeping your culture. And we chose this topic simply because we don't know enough about plant-based diet. Now, Will is an African-American man who made an incredible transformation in his diet and in his life. He's made it his mission to educate other African-Americans on how they can improve their diet and still keep their culture. Will is going to break down many of the myths associated with plant-based diet and how we can prepare meals in a non-traditional manner and still maintain the flavor and goodness that we're accustomed to. I always say healthy eating doesn't mean giving up our rich culture. So it is now my pleasure to introduce to you Will Wright. Will says that he has a renewed outlook on the future for health outcomes. So Will, the floor is all yours. Go ahead.
Well, thank you very much. Can everyone hear me okay? Is my mic on and face lit up? Okay. Well, thank you, Valerie and Audrey Burton, Beth Key, and Constant Boyd for inviting me to speak today. I am very proud of the fact that I have overcome some of the worst of times in my life. On June 2010, it was a very dark month for me. I was diagnosed with renal cell carcinoma and prostate cancer in the same week. And it was pretty interesting because my symptoms were not very dramatic. You know, I had just was feeling a little lightheaded over a period of time, and there was just this June of 2010 was one of the hottest months in a while, and I was I had a 2.5-hour trip out from Long Island into Manhattan. It was 5 hours each way, but you know, I kind of reveled in the fact that I would sit on the train and watch the world go by, and there were times I wouldn't feel really good, and other times I would feel fine, and so Hunters Point Avenue was my exit where I got off the train, and to exit the station, you had to walk 3 flights up to get to the street level. And on this particular day, my symptoms were lightheadedness and weakness, and I fainted right at the top of the landing. And I kind of recovered, and it was still a struggle for me to get to work. But when I got to work, I noticed there were posters. It's just fortuitous that it was Men's Health Week where I worked at NBC News. It was Men's Health Week, and they had doctors on call to talk to the men at the in the office about their general health. And I had asked for some time off to go do this because I had at the time I was managing a team, and we had a lot on our agenda. So I talked to my boss. I said, you know, I wasn't feeling very well today, and I'd like to be able to go in and find out what's going on. So I took advantage of this Men's Health Week, and the urologist on duty who screened me took a particular interest, and he had me go for ultrasounds right away, and he found these nodes on my kidneys as well. So the overall prognosis was that they were early catches. And so in July of 2010, I had a partial nephrectomy on my left kidney with Dr. Guido Del Bogni of Memorial Sloan Kettering. And in October of that same year, 2010, I had robotic surgery to remove my prostate with Dr. Vincent Ladone, and he was the chief of surgery, and they were trying to pioneer these new robotic surgery techniques. So I was really lucky to have him, and problem solved. You know, cut out the cancer in my kidney, cut out the cancer in my prostate, and it seemed to be everything would be fine. But as it turns out, 5 years later, I had still was experiencing these health issues in my lab work, because when you go to a really high-end hospital where they have a lot of research going on and a lot of studies going on, they tend to want to follow you. And I thought it was really important as an African American man going through these type of health issues to let them do it. Of course, you know, we all read about the Tuskegee studies. We all read about how tissue samples from a Black woman was used to pretty much pioneer genetic research with no compensation to her, not even an acknowledgement. And so there's this huge suspicion that had gone on. But as somebody who was in the media, I thought it was really important for me to kind of like put that aside and look at the bigger picture. And for me, the bigger picture was there were other men who had experienced prostate cancer, there were other men who were experienced renal cell carcinoma, men of color. They may not have been given the opportunity to be followed closely and to have reports made so that other people who had the same type of genetic makeup as I do would be able to experience a high level of care. So, so I allowed this to happen. So I allowed this following. And so what they found was that my bone, using a bone marrow biopsy, skeletal surveys and MRIs, which I agreed to. And the other good thing is that I had good health insurance that paid for all of that. But they found that I had monoclonal gammonopathy of undetermined significance, or MGUS, which was like early precursors for myeloma. And the doctor who discovered this in me, Dr. Roman Shengarev, managed my MGUS for 3 years. And 2 years ago, he left to go to a practice in Birmingham, Alabama, where he started, a place where he went to medical school. And he turned me over to another doctor, and her name was Dr. Irvi Shaw. Now, I mentioned that I always followed up on what my doctors were like and what their health records were like and what their outcomes were like, basically because of the fact that I, at one point, pretty much prescribed to the same suspicions as people of color to the health and health. And being in the media, I'm always seeing a lot of studies. And there was a study in 2020 that showed 7 out of 10 people of color really had suspicions about the healthcare industry. And so I wanted to make sure that the doctors that I was involved in were pretty good in terms of following through, and that they had a really good track record. So Dr. Shaw and I would have conversations about the best way to mitigate the onslaught of full-blown mitigation, myeloma. And I was fortunate that in my discovery about Dr. Shaw is that she was a scientist. And she had over a dozen clinical trials to her credit. And she was also a cancer survivor who overcame her illness through diet and discipline. And when she spoke with such authority and knowledge. And it's really strange because, you know, at the time I met Dr. Shaw, I was 70 years old. And to me, she looked like a teenager because she was just so young and she would sound so young. And I would look at her and I'm thinking, you know, I'm learning so much from somebody who has so much youthful vitality and youthful energy. But I had to always consider the fact that that as a scientist and as a person who had cured herself, she was an authority. And I admired that in her. And she in our conversations, she confided to me that her whole dietary regimen was plant-based, and that she believed that a plant-based diet was something that anyone who had health issues should look into, because it eliminated a lot of the processed foods and a lot of the meat proteins and a lot of the fat, a lot of the cholesterol, things that are added to your body that aren't naturally supposed to be there. And Dr. Shaw said that she was going to embark upon a new dietary study. And if I was interested in being a part of it, she would recommend that I join her study. And once again, that, you know, the antenna come up and you start thinking about whether or not this is a really good idea. But then once again, as an African-American male who recognizes the fact that we're not in a lot of studies and not a lot is known about what can be of benefit to Black men who are experiencing chronic diseases such as I was experiencing. I had 2 cancers already, and I was trying to combat myeloma. I was a diabetic. And I say was a diabetic, and I'll tell you a little bit more about why I was and I am no longer a diabetic. I had DVTs, DVTs, deep vein thrombosis, blood clots would form. I had a lot of issues, and I believed in talking with Dr. Shaw that a lot of that could be mitigated through a plant-based diet. And so I agreed that if I were to get into the study that she was organizing, that I would do exactly to the letter everything that study maintained, because I wanted to know as much as she wanted to know if through the diet, physical activity, the discipline, if all of this would in fact be of benefit. And when the study happened, it was last August, I started the study. The study provided 5 days of food, five days of meals. There were 2 days where you were on your own because they didn't want to say overwhelm you, and allowed you to kind of find your way, which was a really good methodology, because the food was provided by a company called Plantable. And I got to tell you, when I first got my first box of Plantable and I looked at it and I said, this is leaves and twigs and roots, and this isn't fried chicken and mac and cheese and greens and the things that I really love. And the other part of it that really kind of got to me was the fact that I'm my family chef. I was the one who did all the cooking in my family. So all of a sudden, I got a box of plant things, and my family is looking at, these wonderful barbecue meals that I used to cook for them, and I was still in the mode of trying to prepare food for them and eat my food, and it was a struggle at first, trying to figure out how I can do this. And when it really comes down to it, a good diet is a matter of taste and nutrition. And I wanted to know if the proper nutrition was going to be a benefit to me. So I had to provide the taste. I had to kind of like touch my food in a way that it would be tasty to me. And my family decided, my wife and my daughter decided that they were going to help me, that they were going to become plant-based diet eaters to kind of help me through this. But my challenge was to make the food tasty for them. Getting back to the study went on for 3 months that they provided food for me. In addition, you had to do a stronger regimen of testing. And so every other week I had to go in for tests and scans, and they sampled your gut biome by, you had to do samples of urine and your stools so that they can see the changes in it. But the most important thing that I found that was happening without any effort at all, other than sticking to a plant-based diet, is that my weight started going down significantly. I was, when I first started, I weighed 216 pounds, and Dr. Shaw told me that, it was really important with myeloma being a bloodborne illness that I really watch my weight and watch what goes into my body, because what is produced by my body in terms of what goes into my bloodstream and what my gut fauna and flora is like. All of that mattered. And so I had to take the very specific steps, the vegan discipline. I had 4 days a week. I do body pump exercise with my daughter. She's like an exercise instructor. I had to tightly observe my sugar intake and my potassium intake because the ravages of the kidney cancer kind of left. I still have one full kidney on the right side and a third of a kidney on the left side. But the bottom line is, when you have renal cell carcinoma, it still affects your overall kidney production. So kind of left me with chronic kidney disease, where potassium and sugar and all of the things that your body normally would be able to combat and handle and process no longer was a viable thing. So I started to gain weight. I started to feel sluggish. I started to really feel worn down. But when I started on my vegan discipline and my exercise regimen and watched the sugar intake, watched the potassium intake, suddenly my weight began to just literally fall off. The other aspect of my way of thinking was whether or not I could reduce stress in my life. The biggest stress to me, which I didn't know, because I loved it so much, was my job. I loved my job. I loved the work that I did. I spent 52 years in television news and in broadcasting as a broadcast manager. And even though I loved my job and it was really stressful, it was something that I didn't really want to walk away from, because to me, it was part of my identity. I wanted to feel useful. I wanted to feel that it was a thing to do. And I didn't feel that I was eminently qualified to do anything else, because all I knew was broadcasting. Like, what else do you know? But the oddest thing is, the minute I made the decision that I wanted to eliminate the stress of work from my life, I found other things to do. I teach college courses, I mentor, I do lectures, very satisfying, less stress, and the health benefits are amazing. As I mentioned, my weight loss went from 216 pounds to 160 pounds today. I stepped on the scale this morning, I weighed 162. Now I'll tell you why. Because my test as a true vegan came to a head last week when my wife and I took our first trip on an airplane to somewhere else other than New York. We went to Savannah, Georgia for a vacation. It was the first time since the COVID pandemic kicked in, because we were not going to step on the plane until we were really satisfied that we were going to be protected. So we went to Savannah. The first 2 days in Savannah were really difficult for me, because I didn't have my vegan pantry and my vegan kitchen. So trying to find the right kind of food for me was kind of difficult. And it was somewhat interesting, because we'd walk into a restaurant and they would have a vegetarian menu. And vegetarianism and veganism are relatively different. And the plant-based diet and veganism, to me, I'm using them interchangeably, because to me, you could be a vegetarian, but they put eggs in your food, they would put cheese in your food, they would put milk in your food, because to them, a vegetarian is you don't eat meat or you don't eat fish. But for me, I had to be totally plant-based to be able to keep my discipline, because to me that was extremely important. And I had found that I was eating a lot more bread to get full, and I would look at the ingredients of the bread, for instance, breads that didn't have milk and cheese in them, and I would eat a lot more of fattier or fruits such as avocados. And so I gained 2 pounds. Small wonder, but it was really interesting because when I first started losing weight, my body mass index went from 31.3 to 23, which is considered healthy. Anything over 30 is clinically obese. Anything under I think it's 27 is considered healthy or normal. So I managed to really turn that around. I really had a more energetic lifestyle, but and more importantly, my family support was amazing. When we were when my wife and I were in Savannah, and the either the chef or the maitre d or the waiter or waitress were trying to explain to me the type of foods, my wife would proclaim, "But he's vegan." and I was so proud of her, that the fact that that her support for me was so great, even though she didn't have to do it. But I had a host of chronic diseases: smoldering myeloma, hypertension, chronic kidney disease, diabetes, weight issues. My diabetes completely cured. I started the dietary study last August. The very first week, I started on a plant-based diet, and I used the plantable regimen, because Plantable as a company, as a food provision company, uses a science base to its provisioning. They have a host of coaches and motivators. Nadia Pinavaria, who is the CEO, was the person who was my initial host and mentor when we first got started. And the first thing she said was, "We're going to cut all the sugar out of your diet." And I thought in the back of my mind, "No, that's not really going to happen. I'm not really going to do that." But I saw the immediate results. The first week I went plant-based, with the only sugar that I consumed was natural sugar in the food, was in the fruit and vegetables that I ate. My diabetes, I went from a struggle to kind of maintain to not having to use any insulin, or I haven't used insulin since last August. And the interesting thing is I had a conversation with my endocrinologist yesterday, and he said, we could pretty much say at this point that you're no longer diabetic, because it has been over 9 months, 10 months that you haven't used insulin, that your A1C has not gone over 6.4. My A1C kind of, that's the indication of your long-term blood sugar stability. My A1C, you're considered, if you can keep it under 7, you're pretty much non-diabetic. My A1C stays in the 6.2, 6.4 range with no insulin intake whatsoever, which is really a great thing, which is really a wonderful benefit from plant-based diet. My chronic kidney disease has been stabilized. I do my lab work once a month. And the lab work shows that I'm not moving toward a point where I would need dialysis, which is really important. As I mentioned, my weight is totally in control. I do a lot of exercises in the morning. It's a weightlifting regimen called Body Pump, 5 days a week. And I feel very energetic. Um, what can I say about, my physical appearance has grown to me a higher level of self-esteem in terms of how I look. Because I really looked in the mirror one day as a 216 pounder, and I said, yeah, I guess I'm a little chubby here, and I wish I could do something about it. And I didn't feel I could do anything about it. But here I am. The key to me is the fact that I have kept the discipline that was necessary for me to achieve the goals that I really wanted to accomplish. So Valerie has a picture that we could pop up, which kind of like shows you the before and after. The guy on the left, me, I was a size 40 waist, weighed 216 pounds. And the guy on the right, the size 30, 162 pounds. That to me was a tremendous accomplishment, and it was well worth the discipline and the change in my lifestyle to not only gain that level of weight, but to gain a level of health that I now experience, and to also be part of a study that I hope will help other people of color achieve the same type of benefit. And that's my opening remarks.
Thank you, Will. Thank you for that inspiring story. I mean, I'm just happy just hearing you and what you've been through, and hearing all the things that you dealt with, and here you are today, able to share your story and say, hey, I'm much healthier, I feel better. It's just a change in lifestyle for you that has been very beneficial, to you. So thanks for sharing your wonderful story there.
Of
I want
course.
to, before we get into this, we're going to have some questions in it. Let me give you guys some kind of instructions on that, when you get ready to answer your questions and stuff. So you can enter your questions in the chat. We can ask them to Will. We can get them answered for you there. If you want to ask your question directly, just using your laptop or your computer, click on those reactions on the bottom there and raise your hand. If you're on a mobile device or a tablet, you can click the horizontal dots and click on where it says more, and then raise your hand button. And we can get your, we will address your question there. But Will, I just want to start out with just asking you, because you did say that you were looking at a smoldering myeloma diagnosis. Where are you with that? Is that your progression slow? How are they monitoring that, and where are things going with that now?
Well, I mentioned that I do once a month. I've been going in and having lab works done either with my endocrinologist or with the myeloma team or with the renal team. So like it's a type of situation where it's being monitored monthly. When I do labs for my endocrinologist, they also add the labs that are necessary for the renal team and for the myeloma team. So even though I'm not seeing my myeloma doctor this particular month, I'm seeing all of the lab work that's done, that is shared by the Memorial Sloan Kettering team, is always present, always there. So next week, I will actually spend time with Dr. Shaw. And I did lab work for her this week. And I looked at the lab work and it seems to be stable. She will let me know specifically anything that she sees that's either positive or negative. But the key is to find a hospital and a team of specialists that are going to take an interest in you, and to make sure you coordinate them, because even my general practitioner, who is not part of the Memorial Sloan Kettering health system, I always have to loop him in whenever I do any of my tests or any of my labs. Even though I only see him twice a year, all of the records that Sloan has on me also goes to him. And you have to kind of be proactive in terms of making sure that all of the medical records that are pertinent to you are seen by the right people and that they talk to each other. And so the question, Valerie, the answer to your question, Valerie, is I will know more next week about my myeloma situation, but the fact that I didn't see Dr. Shaw for the past 2 weeks, she knows what's going on with my body. And if there was an issue, she would have called me by now. And that's and that to me is important.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Keep us posted on that, because we want to know how things are going. So Marietta asked the question, what does a day of plant-based eating look like?
Oh, well, it changes on a day-to-day basis, and it's based on my creativity. There are certain things that I do in preparation. For instance, I will make vegan corn muffins, vegan blueberry muffins. They would be in the refrigerator, and I'll either use them for breakfast or snacks. There is a plant-based egg substitute. It's called Just Egg. It comes in 3 forms. It's a liquid, which I use to make like my fried eggplant or any fried vegetable that requires an egg-based batter. It also comes in a almost like an omelet. It's a pre-cooked omelet. All you have to do is pop it in the microwave, and some people even put it in a toaster. And then they have a little like a Mexican muffin. And they have a very specific name for it. But I didn't particularly care for them. But I would start off with an omelet that I make with Just Egg, and with the omelet, I would add mushrooms and celery and the chives. I would cook them, and I would just pour Just Egg in there. And the key with this particular brand of egg substitute is low and slow. You use the lowest possible cooking heat and just let it go very slowly. And the lower and the slower you could do it, the better it tastes. But ultimately, it folds into a really wonderful omelet. I also like to cook soups. To me, are the most amazing. I use rice noodles or rice. I don't use any noodles that has a milk or egg base to it. I have learned a lot about Asian seasoning. I make my own chili oils. I make my own sauces. And I would add that to my soups, which I will do a soup for either lunch or either dinner. I would make it as hearty as possible. I do. I'm not such a fan of substitute meats, although there are certain ways that I do use substitute meats. For instance, I do chilies with meat substitutes. But I will do dinners with black beans and rice, and I do sushi with authentic Japanese sushi, but I would use plant-based ingredients. Today, for instance, this morning, I had a omelet that I made with just egg. I didn't do lunch yet, but after I finish this, I'm going to make a noodle soup, which is with a ramen noodle base. And for dinner, I promised my wife that we would do Impossible burgers, and I cook potatoes in. I have a Ninja grill and air fryer, and I use that for all of my frying and grilling and broiling and baking. And so that's what today's menu is like. My menu tomorrow, and I think ahead, I had, my wife loves watermelon. I like watermelon for a different reason. I like to make tuna with it, vegan tuna. And you can say, come on, really? But for me, I had a fish allergy, but I know how good fish tastes because you had to eat it to know that you're allergic to it. And so tuna is one of the fishes I really like. And oddly enough, these vegan recipes that I find on YouTube, oddly enough, are amazing. And the key is to have your pantry up to snuff. You have to have like the amino liquids, and you have to have the tahinis, and you have to have the rice vinegar and the soy and all of the things that these recipes call for aren't things you naturally have. So it took me about a month to kind of stock up with the chickpea flour, the arrowroot flour, the right type of wheat gluten, the right types of noodles and macaronis, and it's a matter of educating yourself and reading labels really, really in detail, because a lot of companies that prepare food will kind of sneak things in on you, because to them, they're not thinking as deeply or as with the same level of discipline you are. So you have to kind of like protect yourself at all times in doing this. So going back on point, and I apologize, I kind of digress sometimes, but I've prepared this watermelon for poke bowls, which I'm going to have tomorrow, which is a combination of fresh vegetables that I've prepared, that I've collected along the way. But I've become a person that initially, when I got my first box of food from Plantables, I looked at it and I said, gee, I'm really not sure I'm going to really love this whole vegetable thing. I'm totally into it, but the key is that I think ahead, and I plan ahead, and I season and I marinate. I have carrots that are being marinated. Some people talk about vegan hot dogs made of carrots. Well, I don't believe you could actually make a vegan hot dog that tastes like carrots, but you can make carrots that taste absolutely amazing if you marinate them. So a lot of the foods I prepare are marinated in advance. As I mentioned, I was my family's chef, and I take pride in creating food for my family that they find is absolutely delicious. And and I take pride now in giving them, preparing something for them and giving it to them. And I just can't wait to hear what they think, because this is things we would never have thought about and never would have even considered before I had started this journey.
Wow. Well, thank you. There's comments blowing up. Will, you got to get a cookbook. Where is I
see that. Yeah. Well, the interesting thing, I can tell you this. Nothing that I've done or prepared is unique. It is. It's a lot of it's out there, and oddly enough, YouTube videos, vegan, are my great incubator of ideas. There are YouTube videos that show you how to make a vegan bacon. I've never made a vegan bacon that actually works yet. There are YouTube videos that I tell you make tuna for poke bowls. That I love because it actually works. There how to create seasonings and sauces that are really delicious that you could add to your food. I have found that now I go to a market that has the freshest vegetables that I can find, and I just go crazy. I come back and just stuff my refrigerator with vegetables, and I pull them out, and some of them I marinate and prepare in advance. Others I will cook on the spur of the moment, but some wind up in soups, some wind up in casseroles, some wind up just in salads. But it's all about flavor and taste. If you can substitute all of the flavor and taste that you had growing up, and I grew up in a Southern Baptist family that believed that to show that you really loved your child, you fed them, and I have found that I'm showing a lot of love by feeding my family, but feeding them in a healthy way, and they're all benefiting the same way I'm benefiting.
Yeah, thank you. So, Will, we do have a question. What fruits are you including in your vegan diet?
Roots. Ooh.
I think fruits, right?
Fruits.
Yeah, fruits. I'm sorry, what kind of fruits?
No, I do include roots. There are roots, but they're more like scallions and stuff like that. The fruits that I like, oranges. I don't eat a lot of bananas because of the potassium. It's high potassium intake, but blueberries, strawberries, blackberries, grapes in moderation because it has a lot of sugar. Apples. I make the most amazing apple butter. You go and you buy like a 5-pound bag of apples. You're not going to eat them all, but before they turn, I peel them, cook them, and make apple butter with them. And I've also out of my wife's garden, she has created a really good system of canning vegetables. And even when we go to the store and I'll buy tons of tomatoes that are about to turn, and you buy them at a huge discount, and I will come home and I will can them right away. I will immediately process them and make a salsa. I will make a tomato sauce. I would make crushed tomatoes. I do my own pickles. I do my own canned peppers. I do a lot of food processing with a lot of canning, which is kind of easy to do and kind of fun to do. And I found it was also a way to discount the amount of money that you're spending for food, especially when you go to markets that have a lot of food that it's about to turn, and you could buy it at a discount. You bring it home and you you can that right away, and you find that, you'll have a whole shelf of food that's ready to go, that you don't have to pay for anymore because you bought it at a discount and it's ready to go.
Awesome. And I know there are some questions about the study. Is that study still going on? I think that my team has addressed that in the chat. For that particular one, you have to live in New York or either be able to travel there a few times a year, 6 visits per year. They've dropped some information about that in the chat. So if you're interested in that, definitely check it out. It's more information will be sent to you along with this recording after the meeting there. I just want to make sure that I'm not missing any questions, but while I'm going through there, Will, I want to ask you, where do we start? For people that don't have a Dr. Shaw, where do we start? What can we access? What can we do today? Because it's not all going to happen at one time. What can we do today if we're interested in this?
It is tough. I can tell you, it's a mindset where you actually start is a close examination of what your goal is. For me, I wanted to survive a little bit longer, and I wanted to look a little bit better in my clothes. There's always there's a yin and a yang to everything you do. For me, I lost over 60 pounds. Now I got to figure out what to do with the skin that was covering that 60 pounds. I mean, it's nothing's excellent. There's always something, but at least I look better in my clothes, and I achieved that. So you got to figure out, what is it you want to achieve, and if I want to go deeper, then you go surgery and you get the skin cut, but I don't think I need that. All I needed to do was to get to a point where my body weight was no longer negatively impacting my health. And that's where I am now. I'm 72 years old. I'm not out, partying. I'm not going to put on a swimsuit and go and try to find a date or anything like that. So I just want to look good, in general, but I also want to feel healthy in general. And that's what's really important, is to feel healthy. So if you're considering the same route I did, it is good to have a coach to talk to. And I would recommend at least for a month. And I have no vested interest in this whatsoever, but Plantable, as a company, plantable.com has coaches that if you buy their food, it's called I think it's called a refresh or a restock or renourish. It's a program, like a starter program, and you get to choose the food that you will order. You may not like it at first. And the reason being is because if you are really into a high level of food preparation, gourmet food preparation, like I was, where, I prided myself of being of a level of chef that if I walked into a restaurant today, that people would pay me to cook for them. So initially their food was not particularly appetizing, nor was it tasty, but I managed to prepare it in a way that worked for me. And then over a period of time, my taste buds adjusted to the flavors. I began to really crave the taste of what unprocessed carrots taste like. I really began to savor the taste of bok choy, and really get into making egg rolls, not egg rolls, but spring rolls with vegan recipes, with cabbage and peppers and a little bit of vegan sausage, just for that, just for the flavor. You get into it. You begin to grow into it. So you get started with a program that has a coach, and it's not really that expensive if you consider the cost of food today. You're going to pretty much spend the same amount of money if you go out and buy food, or you go to restaurants. My daughter was a restaurant addict. I'm saying, you every day you're going out to a restaurant, you're spending a ton of money on food, and it's making you fat. So what's the advantage to that? So the key is to have a really good sense of what you want to accomplish. Find somebody who can help you accomplish that. If it's not plantable, there's also Forks Over Knives is a really good site that you can visit. They have recipes there that are amazing. I can tell you, there are Fork Over Knives recipes that are like my go-to recipes. There's one like a fettuccine Alfredo, which uses foods. Ask me what kind of roots I use. It uses celeriac, which is a celery root, as the cream base. If you cook celeriac and you throw it in a blender, and it goes into almost like a cream, and you use that as your cream base, and you use a vegan style fettuccine or spaghetti or mustacholi or ziti, along with capers and onions and just a little bit of carrots. And if you marinate your carrots and you marinate your peppers and all your food before you add it all together, you can have a very tasty Alfredo that does not have cream in it, that doesn't have ham in it, but it tastes just as good. And you get to build on that. So that's one thing. Now, I got that from Forks Over Knives. And so Forks Over Knives also has a special holiday recipes. For instance, I think I got something, I think it was yesterday or the day before, something from Forks Over Knives, which talked about Memorial Day, how to do vegan Memorial Day cooking for your family. They did a really great spread for Thanksgiving. They did something really great for Christmas. So focus on what your goals are. Find a really good coach. If you're experiencing myeloma now, or MGUS, a smaller myeloma, and you're working with a myeloma team, talk to them about what are the goals, what are the things that you see in your lab work that need to be adjusted, because there is a plant-based solution to a lot of that. For me, it was potassium and sugar. And so the plant-based solution was to deal with low potassium and low sugar foods, low and sodium. And so if you cobble together all of the key ingredients of your success and make it your own, what I managed to accomplish is unique to me. Some of it may work for you. For instance, my wife says that, I eat all day long and I don't gain weight. She eats what I eat and she gains weight. She can't understand it because we're different. So, that's the way life is, So find a coach, understand what you want to accomplish, and pay attention to your lab works and listen to your body.
Awesome. Thank you. We are running out of time, but there's a couple more questions I do want to make sure I get in. Jason here is a chef. Looks like he's a myeloma patient too. His myeloma is in remission there. But Jason asked about juicing. Do you do any juicing?
I don't do a lot of juicing because of the sugar. When I first started the dietary study, the coach at Plantable talked about my diabetes impact on that too. The fact that not only was I suffering from the myeloma effects, but I also was diabetic. And for me, juicing kind of spiked my blood sugar, and it took a longer time for my blood to normalize after I juiced. So I don't do a lot of juicing. I will maybe once a month, I will have a smoothie because they just taste good, and I want to reward myself with something flavorful. But I do a lot of I eat a lot of blackberries. I eat a lot of strawberries. I could conceivably do shakes. I like plant-based milk, so I think you've inspired me. I think what I'll do, I have I'll try I'll try a different combination. As opposed to using fruit juice, maybe I'll use a plant-based milk and a low glycemic fruit, and see how that works.
Awesome. And my team has shared some of Will's favorite recipes there from Forks Over Knives, so do check that out in the chat there. But this is going to be the last question from Kim. And Kim says, I'm not a chef like you. For an average cook, do you think I can make whole food plant recipes tasty? I struggle with what spices to use that are sodium free. I did not think we could use alternative meats with whole plant-based diets. For example, impossible meats.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, could you speak to that?
Well, yeah, the impossible meats are good for something, and for me, they're good for creating a more authentic taste for people that you're cooking for in general. Like my family, they want chili. They don't like beans in their chili. So it's very difficult to make a plant-based chili without beans unless you use impossible meats. I have used some of the some of the recipes on YouTube will show you how to make ribs, which really work, in terms of spare ribs. They're boneless spare ribs and boneless chicken wings. Some of those recipes really work, but you have to kind of work it. But in terms of making food tasty, I don't know if you like Indian foods, but Indian spices are the best to get you started, because they add so much flavor to whatever you're cooking. The other food is the other spices I use. I use a mushroom powder and mushroom. You would say, what is mushroom seasoning? Mushroom powder. They add a base to it. I use. I used to use soy sauce, but then I went to a low sodium tahini, and now I'm using amino liquids, which are really good. On foods that really should taste a little meaty, I use jackfruit mixed with Marmite. Marmite gives it a meaty. Jackfruit is a really good mimicker of meat, and it's not like the impossible meats, which are highly processed. jackfruit is an amazing meat substitute in a pinch. But once again, marinate it. Don't just throw it all together and expect it to work immediately. You have to kind of like plan it in advance. And right now I have my watermelon marinating in this liquid, and I'm going to put it in my Ninja, and I'm going to air cook that, and it's going to shrivel down, and in the end it's going to taste like tuna. It really is going to taste like tuna. And I'm going to make poke bowls tomorrow. I wanted poke bowls today, but it's not going to work because it's not going to be ready. And if I try to do it today, it's not going to taste good. So that's the key. It's patience, planning in advance. Try spices. I went to an Indian market, and I researched in advance all of the Indian spices that were in foods that I liked when I was non-vegan, and I learned how to use them over time. And now it's like second nature. I will just go to my pantry and I'll pull out the spices I need. I'll line them up. I never used to cook in a way that I had lined up all of the ingredients in advance before I even start, even before I turn the flame on. It's basically because there is a method to creating something that is masterfully good. And once you get into a system, it begins to work for you. And so that's where I'm at.
Awesome. Thank you there. I see Jason dropped some more tips there in the chat. Go ahead and check those out. Will, thank you for being here with us today. We certainly appreciate all the knowledge and expertise that you bring in this matter. And we are looking forward to trying some of these things. Definitely going to check out Forks Over Knives and the Plantable that you talked about. And, we're going to get started with something different. So thank you for being here with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So I want to invite you all to join us next month as we welcome back fitness expert Vanya Hudson. You may remember Vanya got us started off with our winter reboot back in January. So next month, she's going to be back to guide us in stepping up our exercise routine by sharing some additional fitness tips. And we're going to have another interactive session with her. So let's get ready to move with Vanya. I hope you all will join us next month for that. And we're also excited. I'm really excited about this. It's the upcoming HealthTree Moves for African American Myeloma Awareness virtual 5K happening August the 13th. Now, this is a virtual event, so anyone from anywhere can take part and participate in this. So join us in bringing awareness to African American myeloma. You can see the link there on your screen. You can join as an individual, you can join a team, or you can create a team. Now, I have a team created called the Resilient Warriors, and I would love for you to I'd love for you to be on my team. I welcome you. You can check that out. Also, you may be interested in some of the other myeloma community crowd events that are taking place on Thursday, the 26th, the newly diagnosed patient chapter for newly diagnosed patients chapter is going to be meeting. They're going to be talking about clinical trials for newly diagnosed myeloma patients with John Rosengrad. On June 2nd at 7:00 p.m., the HealthTree Moves for Myeloma chapter is going to be talking about water aerobics and the benefits of water aerobics for myeloma patients. So the link to sign up for any of these events and even more that I haven't mentioned today can be found on the bottom of the slide. And it's also going to be sent to you within 28 hours of this event. As always, I want to take a moment to thank our sponsors, without whom this would not have been possible: Bristol Myers Squibb, GSK, Genentech, Janssen Oncology, and AbbVie. And thank you for helping us make a strong myeloma crowd community. I appreciate you and hope that you enjoy the rest of your day.